Why people should start considering solar now. Before we get into it, I just want to educate you about the main source of energy we use in our daily lives. The main source of energy we use are derived from fossil fuels. Best example is crude oil since it has multiple usage. I'm sure you all knew that the fuels we used for our cars, planes, boats were all derived from the byproducts of crude oil. Aside from that, crude oil byproduct is also used to generate electricity. Although power-producing companies derive power from alternative source of energy, especially in the electricity-producing sector, there are private companies who still uses diesel generators or crude oil byproducts to power their factories or private homes, especially those located in remote areas. This contributes to the faster depletion of crude oil since the world consumes tons of crude oil every day, dominated by the transportation sector. Millions of cars, boats, planes are burning fossil fuel byproducts every day. As per scientific study by engineers and scientists in the petroleum engineering sector, the remaining crude oil may only last up to 47 years from now, taking in consideration the exponential rise of population, which only mean an increase of usage of crude oil. We might be thinking, it doesn't matter since we may not live further than 47 years, but if you care for the next generation, which may include your grandchildren's, then you should consider what I am saying. Aside from that, even if crude oil will last longer than the survey, we should expect that the price of fuels extracted from crude oil will increase as the population, demand for cars increases. To the point that only few can afford. By the way, crude oil isn't formed overnight or isn't like spring water that may have unlimited supply from under the ground. It takes millions of years for crude oil to be formed naturally. It is formed from the decomposed plants and animals which were buried under the ground. You might think about the dinosaurs and large amount of plants and trees that historically, or shall we say scientifically, were the ones present on Earth million years ago. The notion that petroleum, crude oil, comes from dinosaurs is fiction. Surprised? Here's where oil really comes from. Oil formed from the remains of marine plants and animals that lived millions of years ago, before the dinosaurs. The tiny organisms fell to the bottom of the sea. Bacterial decomposition removed most of the oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur from the matter, leaving behind a sludge of mainly carbon and hydrogen. As the oxygen was removed from the detritus, decomposition slowed. Over time, the remains became covered by layers of sand and silt. As the depth of the sediment reached or exceeded 10,000 feet, pressure and heat changed the remaining compounds into hydrocarbons and other organic compounds that form crude oil and natural gas. Plankton, pressure, and heat. The type of petroleum formed by the plankton layer depended largely on how much pressure and heat were applied. Low temperatures caused by lower pressure resulted in a thick material, such as asphalt. Higher temperatures produced a lighter petroleum. Ongoing heat could produce gas, though if the temperature exceeded 500 degrees Fahrenheit, the organic matter was destroyed and neither oil nor gas was produced. Now that we know that the supply of fossil fuel is not eternal and the way people utilize fuel is wasteful, I think it is high time for us to look for alternatives. Crude oil and all fuels prices will surely increase as the years go by. Just imagine the amount of chaos it will bring when transportation sector or some factories may cease operation caused by all of these. It's like the things you have only seen in movies, but this is the one thing that is close to reality. Hunger, unemployment, crimes will surely rise. Of course, it is not the end of the world yet. As we all know, the Earth has the infinite supply of alternatives. Think about three things that has infinite supply and are essential to people's lives, like air, wind power, water, hydroelectric, and sunlight, solar. Since we already have hydroelectric plants and wind power plants operating large scale and were owned by big private companies or entities, I just want to discuss the one that can be owned by people, common people, and not only by large corporation, and this is solar power. We can harness power from sunlight and directly use it for our comforts, and also we can store it to batteries for further usage during night time and gloomy days where the sunlight isn't so bright. Advantages of having a solar-powered home. 1. Cut or zero out electric bills. 2. In times of calamities, power failures, you can still power your homes from the stored energy or directly from the solar panel. 3. Solar panels can last to 20+ years if properly maintained. 4. You can build a personal charging station for your electric scooters, electric cars. You can even build a commercial charging station for future purposes. Take note that electric cars are slowly introduced now. Electric cars by Tesla, which is owned by Elon Musk, and some Chinese manufacturers are already out in the market. These companies are building for the future cause they know that crude oil death is inevitable. As electric cars will eventually replace fuel cars, gasoline stations will be replaced by electric charging stations, most specifically solar charging stations. The questions asked by skeptics is how about planes, ships? They are supposed to be aerodynamic, but placing a lot of batteries and spare to sustain an 8-hour flight or cruise will become very heavy and may become dangerous. My answer is, don't ever underestimate the power of the human brain. Just think about the evolution of computers, internet and cell phones. Who would have think back in 1990s that a television, computer, cameras and telephones would be made into one compact form? What I am saying is, the evolution of batteries or energy storages will be astonishing in the coming years, just like the evolution of media storages from mere 500 MB to 10 terabytes in small compact form. Imagine a battery in the size of a DVD player that can power a 10-story building. This is just exaggeration, but my point is everything is possible is proven by the technological advancement we are seeing. Just imagine how mobile phones evolved from year 2010 to now. Solar is right on the same track. The only difference is that old mobiles are almost unuseful, but old solar power systems still can be used alongside the new ones, since its sole purpose is to harness energy and produce power. 4. By switching to renewable energy like solar power, we are doing the Earth a great favor by reducing the amount of pollutants that can deplete the ozone layer. Imagine a world with less carbon emission from cars and factories burning fossil fuels. For sure, we will be breathing a cleaner air and may lessen the cause of diseases that